Yo, so it's been a while since my last video, but hello, I'm Dorki. I got to play the early alpha access for the Warfin, and there are a lot to go over. I'll try to get a bunch of videos out for what's to come and my first impressions. In this alpha, we got to see 2 new dungeons, delves, the new zone, and a bunch of updates to class talent trees, hero trees, UI improvement, and more. There are actually some pretty cool changes to the class talent trees, so just a little spoiler. Monk is getting some really cool new talent where after you roll and you jump, it does like a little double jump, like it does a little glide forward. Druids, they also have some pretty cool new talent called Fluid Form that when you hit buttons like Rake or Shred, it instantly puts you into cat form. And if you press Mango, you instantly go into bear form. Press Wrath or Starfire, you instantly go into Moonkin form. So yeah, there's gonna be a bunch of really cool stuff that I'll be covering, so stay tuned. Alright, as for the new features, there are a bunch of cool new features. So there's the warbands, there's gonna be like different backgrounds too that you'll be able to acquire later on. And in-game, there's dynamic flying, which is basically dragon flying, but you can do it with pretty much any mouse now, and druid form can actually dragon ride. Some other new features here too. So in your talent tree page, you can click spellbook now, and you have your entire spellbook all nice and tidy and organized. This will actually be super useful for me in particular because I'm pretty known for clicking a lot of my abilities here, and sometimes it's nice when it's all condensed. There's also this really cool accessibility feature. I couldn't believe it. It's called Arachnophobia mode. You select this because this patch being a Nerubian patch, it actually replaces most of the spider-like creatures with a crab. Yeah. Alright, we'll start off with going over the delves. These are the open world instance content around the new zone. They're instanced 1 to 5 player content and can reward up to heroic level gear and are considered the new form of endgame pillar content outside of the usual M+ rating PvP. So this is supposed to be an evergreen content going into the War Within and beyond. There are 2 to 4 of these delves contained in each of these new zones, and we got to test 3 of them in this alpha. Currently there are 3 levels of delve difficulty, and on alpha we only had access up to tier 2. Tier 3 required 525 item level and the campaign completed. So in these delves there's a companion, Brand Bronzebeard, that assists you, either healing, tank, or DPS, whatever you want Brand to be. He levels as you journey through these delves to make the subsequent runs easier, and in these delves you basically complete objectives like scenarios. There will be a treasure at the end too. So the objectives, they aren't particularly exciting. They consist of the typical quests like rescue NPCs, open chests, kill a certain amount of mobs, or a boss. There are also powers around the delves that will help you with getting through, like a haste buff, absorb shield, or there's this double jump power that I saw. None of the powers in particular are on the same level as the Torghast power, however.
Gotta get our Explorers League supplies. Okay. Oh, you can add sockets.
Let's make him a DPS.
Wait, what's up? You're making who a DPS?
Braun.
Oh, okay, combat roll. Damage
Brand.
dealer, yes.
Yeah, bang, he's locked in. Okay, we gotta guard the cart. And this can get you like pretty good vault gear, I think, from doing this.
Okay, so we gotta free these guys.
Yeah.
Yo, look at this new transcend. Holy, that was a nice leap. Wait,
I spawned guys. I spawned so many guys.
Okay.
You have to, so you have to click on somebody and do transcend, and then use transfer. Oh yeah, he's here. Yeah.
We gotta rescue these miners too.
Yeah. Thunderclap.
What did you just get an ability?
I have Thunderclap, yeah, and then I turned it to Thunder Blast. That's my hero talent.
Wait, I want a cool ability.
It's my hero talent. It's not from delves.
Yeah, mine aren't particularly really cool. Wow, it's a big Todd.
Oh, there's an ability over here.
Yeah, rare.
Epic.
Wait,
creates a barrier that absorbs hella damage.
Yeah, and it does hella damage when
and
it blows
it's gonna
up.
explode when it expires. Okay. Oh, more of them.
Wait, are we in combat?
Yep.
I'm in combat, yeah.
Oh, Brand discovered something.
Holy.
I think that's kind of his bit. Oh, by the way, don't we need to heal him because he's like a little baby?
Low,
yeah, he's kind of getting owned.
Dude, all these powers only lasting for a minute makes me feel like I really want to go fast.
Oh, boss? His last boss, I think.
This is the last boss?
No way.
Is it? I actually don't know.
Already.
Maybe just a little bit more.
Whoa.
Oh, this is a treasure.
I think I'm doing a lot of damage, by the way.
Yeah, Monk felt pretty OP. Look at all this gold. Wow, 1 gold from running over all these gold piles.
The guys from Plunder
That's
Store.
good.
All right, let's do it.
I mean, this is not aimed at us, right? Like, this very much aimed at a different type of player than us.
All right,
I
I'll
think.
just
Oh, okay, right, very good. Did it just die?
Nice work.
As for the difficulty, it was not very hard. Tier 2 was mostly brain off, chill, 5 to 10 minute content. From a Q&A with the delves seem like they can go up to tier 13 with tier 8 being the highest reward. So here are my thoughts. I went in with relatively low expectation. I know this content was not designed for me, and it's what I expected since the announcement at BlizzCon. It wasn't particularly engaging. As I've mentioned, it consisted of just simple talk to NPCs, pick up chests, and kill mobs. Maybe the higher tier delves will change things, or delves later on will be very different, but my first impression are they're a bit disappointing for how they were announced as a core evergreen endgame pillar content. The goal of the delves, in my opinion, were to have content out there in the world that was rewarding, challenging, and allowed solo players to have a progression system, but to me it really didn't feel like open world content. I would have much preferred content similar to Mage Tower, Visions from BFA, or Withered Army Training, or maybe even Torghast. Something that was engaging, challenging, unique, and rewarding. In fact, I would have loved if the rewards could go up to Mythic gear for solo players, if the challenge was there. With the rewards being capped at tier 8 and 13 being the highest, I hope to see more rewards behind the higher difficulties. Overall, it's not my type of content, but I'm glad there's at least something for players who prefer not to do Raid or M+. I could see this being something to do on the side when there's nothing going on, or maybe it'll be a good source of alt gearing, but for the most part I see myself maybe doing it like once or twice, experiencing it, and maybe moving on. We'll find out when the game actually comes out, or when they allow us to test higher tiers of the difficulty. Alright, now on my impressions on the dungeons. 2 dungeons we got to do were Cinderbrew, Meadery, and the Rookery. Both these dungeons were great. I thoroughly enjoyed the themes and the vibes of the dungeon, especially Cinderbrew. Cinderbrew had like a bunch of really dumb puns and what seemed like the silly Blizzard shenanigans. Another thing I've noticed with these dungeons was the trash density. Both dungeons were packed with mobs, and in my eyes that's always a win. Lots of mobs equals big AoE equals big overall damage equals dopamine hit. I'm thinking like Brackenhide Hollow or Freehold, Everbloom. We both seemed pretty short as well, but Rookery has 3 bosses, which we don't see a whole lot, and Cinderbrew was a really small dungeon layout wise. It didn't require a whole lot of traversing. So far, these are also big wins from an M+ perspective. Dungeons that don't have a lot of long RP or traveling are generally great. Oh, big pull.
I have a debuff on me.
Holy, I'm popping off.
Dark gravity.
So that also sucks. I'm gonna stay in this.
Right. Yeah, that was kind of a lot of damage. Probably kills you.
The bosses were also pretty interesting, but nothing too special. I will say these dungeons definitely suffer a bit from the modern bloat of abilities. A lot of the mobs seem to have lots of lethal abilities to deal with, and some of the bosses have obnoxious or anti-fun mechanics. The first boss of Rookery, for example, seems like it can be kind of annoying. It jumps in the middle every 30 seconds or so, and melees can't even attack the boss at all during that. In general, there are just a lot of mechanics that feel very anti-melee, like having to pick up something and run across the map, then run back to the boss, or like having to run out and drop a circle, or just like mechanics that zone you out of melee. Those generally suck really bad for melees. For M+, these dungeons do seem like they will be linear, but because of how trash dense they are, it might allow for a lot of options in terms of how you pull the dungeon. Hopefully they get the whole count correct in these dungeons so that you don't have to pull every single mob. Looking at the rest of these dungeons, there are multiple dungeons with only 3 or 4 bosses, which is quite nice. We don't have access to the rest of these dungeons, but through the screenshots, dungeons do look pretty nice in terms of vibes. Hopefully they'll be as good as these 2 dungeons that we've done on Alpha. So for class updates for this build, there's been some significant updates to Fury Warrior, Arms Warrior, Druid class tree, Boomkin, Pharaoh Druid, and Resto Druid. For Paladins, there's Red Paladin and Holy Paladin, Preservation Evoker, and on Monk, there's the Monk class tree, Windwalker, and Mistweaver. I'll mostly be looking over the Druid stuff and the Monk class tree since they're the tank specs, and I'll mostly be covering tank content. So this is the new Druid class tree. They made it easier to get Remove Corruption, they made it easier to get Skull Bash, and to get Astral Influence, you don't have to go down the Boomkin stuff. But they did add a lot of extra nodes, like Ursoc Spirit here, 10% stamina in bear form. They added this right here, Instinct of the Claw, just a bunch of physical damage increases. And over here, Lore of the Grove, Moonfire and Sunfire damage increase. There's also this really cool talent that I mentioned in the beginning. You can now instantly get into cat form, bear form, or moonkin form by just pressing one of these abilities, which makes it really cool, because with Druid of the Claw, you can jump into cat form with a rake, get an instant full combo point rip, and you won't be susceptible while doing that because of these class talents that let you retain your tankiness while in cat form. It's actually really cool, and it's like a pretty fun way of playing. The problem is it's so hard to access a lot of what Druid had before, like Stampeding Roar. Stampeding Roar is very hard to get to, and it would be really nice if we'd get Heart of the Wild with this whole cat forming on single target. But yeah, overall, bunch of passives that buff Druid through the tree, but at the same time, it is hard to access a lot of the stuff now, like Stampeding Roar and Innervate and Nature's Vigil or Heart of the Wild. And conversely, if you're a Boomkin or a Resto Druid, you can probably get down here easily, but you'll have a hard time getting some of your defensive nodes. So overall, I'm not too sure how I feel about the Druid tree, but I'll definitely go over the Druid stuff more in future videos. Alright, so the Monk tree, there's a bunch of new things. One is it's much easier to get 3 Charge of Roll now, all you need is Celerity. The 2 group buffs, Close to Heart and Generous Pour, are gone. A lot of 2-pointers are also gone, like Grace of the Crane, Fast Feet, these are all now 1 point. Resonant Fist, Bounce Back. And on the bottom here, they added a bunch of really cool new stuff. There's this right here, Lighter Than Air. When you roll, you can do a little double jump dash, and Jade Walk, so you just get 15% move speed out of combat. A lot more mobile. Lots of stuff for kiting too, like Crashing Momentum here. When you roll through targets, they're snared by a lot, and we can increase that even more. And there's some unique stuff here too. There's this new Transcendence where you can link to an ally, making it so that you can transcend to an ally. It's actually really cool. I was messing around with this a little bit, so we could probably see some like really cool tech with this. There's also this right here, Flow of Chi. It's just like a bunch of stats. Move speed if you're above 90%, and below that you get damage taken reduced, and below that 35% you get healing received increase. And there's also this right here. I haven't messed with this too much, but it's supposed to make you lunge at the nearest target in front of you when you roll. So yeah, this right here, Lighter Than Air, you can roll and then jump, and it does a little dash. It's actually really cool. You can do a bunch of cool things with this too. You can like jump backwards, you can dodge in and out. I really like this talent. And there's also this right here, Healing Winds. When you Transcendence, you just heal for 15% of your max HP. And if you have 2 Transcends with Escape from Reality, you basically heal for 30% of your HP. I'll show you guys right here. Wow, I'm gonna take too much damage, but you can Transcend, boom, heals for a ton. Transcend again, boom. Lots of healing from just doing that. But yeah, so far, huge improvements to this tree. Lots of really good stuff you can take, and the top of the tree, you can take pretty much everything. Oh, and one more thing you could also get is Pressure Point. Para now removes enrage effects. All enrage effects too. It's not just a singular enrage effect. During this alpha, we had a Q&A with the devs, and there's been some pretty insightful answers. For Mythic Plus, there will be affix changes, but no seasonal or complete rework of affixes. They like the whole returning dungeons, and that's like enough of a change where we don't need seasonal affixes. As for raiding, Heroic Week is back, which means we'll get an entire week of Heroic before Mythic Raid comes out, which also means we expect to see tighter class or raid tuning for that Mythic Week. Private auras, they still plan on using them, but they'll keep a closer eye on them. They want to keep the fights to be done how it was intended, and in many cases, weak auras can trivialize a mechanic. The Mythic raiding difficulty curve, they plan on smoothing it out rather than the current, you hit a wall, then you hit another wall right after. They want to have like a smooth hill sort of slope. Warband gold means we get account-wide gold now. You can deposit your gold into the warband and gold is shared across your account. And finally, for class buffs, they don't seem to be going anywhere, but they'll try to address classes that don't get a slot in raid. I've done a little bit of exploring the new zones we've got access to, and I'm loving the whole area. The zones are massive like Dragonflight, which makes sense with dynamic flying. The new city also looks really nice, reminds me of Valdrakken. Looking at some of the screenshots, the whole Nerubian vibes are also great. I've always loved the Nerubians since Warcraft 3, and seeing them come back has been a pleasant surprise. Anyways, that covers my first thoughts and impressions on the War Within Alpha. I plan to continue releasing content leading up to the expansion launch, so make sure to stay tuned. Thanks again for watching.